Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Game Club. I'm Graham.
And I'm George.
We wanted to talk about the Cascade trait. There's a lot of mixed information about this trait, so we wanted to set the record straight on exactly how this trait works. The TLDW is, it's working exactly as intended. It's fine on all characters, and it's a decent choice of trait too, if a touch situational. So let's dig in. First, we need to set a baseline. We ran tests on Keg using which takes 83 seconds to get back after use. Then we threw on Cascade at trait level 20, which gives 2% cooldown reduction. We did runs where we only used attacks and no skills, and another set with only skills. Just for good measure, we also did runs with attacks and skills, as well as one that included her signature sigil that also gives cooldown reduction on her finisher.
So let's look at the results. First up, using just attacks gave us a massive 20% cooldown reduction, which is equivalent to quick cooldown at trait level 45. Whew! So clearly that means we should throw quick cooldown into the trash, right? Not exactly, but we'll get to that later. Next up is skills only, which gave us a cooldown reduction of 5%, which is not too surprising. Attacks and skills together gave us a reduction of 22%. Keep in mind, we're using 2 supporting skills, so you can probably expect a bit better returns if you're running all attack-oriented skills. Finally, the last run with the signature sigil gave us a whopping 33% cooldown reduction. So clearly, everything checked out here. The skill is working great. Of course, we ran tests on other characters to make sure Cascade was working properly across the board. Rackham was a popular name we saw come up when people said this trait didn't work on him. So we tested him specifically, and as you can see from the results here, we were able to get a cooldown reduction difference even though we totally sucked at his rotation. So definitely working there as well.
So the question is, if it is working, then what exactly is happening? There are wildly different opinions on if this skill even works, but why? Well, that's because the effect is so subtle. Let me demonstrate. From her signature sigil, Keg has a 3% cooldown reduction when hitting her finisher. When you hit, you can clearly see her cooldown bump up. But why can't you see the 2% from Cascade running at level 20? Surely you'd see that visual as well, right? Well, that's because you're not actually getting a 2% cooldown reduction. But hold up, Graham, I hear you say. Doesn't the effect say you get cooldown reduction when you hit? True, but that's only part of the equation. The other half is the second sentence and the linchpin in understanding how this skill really works. At trait level 20, we get 2% cooldown reduction. But as we read on, the effect is scaled based on the hit. So let's break down what this means and how it works.
Warning, I'm going to use made-up number values, so don't freak out. These are just example numbers, but it should be generally representative of how the trait works.
So, for example, Keg's first hit has a Cascade modifier of 0.25. When I hit something, it takes that 2% cooldown reduction from Cascade, multiplies it by 0.25 and gives us 0.5%, meaning that every time Keg hits with her first hit, it's only a 0.5% cooldown reduction. Now her third hit in the combo is a double attack, so let's say that scales even lower, at 0.15, which then divided on 2% is 0.3, but it hits twice, so that's a total of 0.6% cooldown reduction. Now these modifiers are low because these attacks are mildly quick. However, attacks like Gondagoza's Raging Fist 5 is one of the strongest single hits in the game, so we could say it has a Cascade modifier of 1 or 1.5, giving us a 2 to 3% cooldown reduction, which is why we can see it visually. Check this out. It looks just like Keg's signature sigil. Pretty cool, right? So it's definitely working.
Okay, so the natural first question to ask in all of this is, why is Cascade like this? Why not just have it activate on every hit? Well, because what do you think would happen if Kag did this? Of course, she would just get all her cooldowns instantly, and inversely, make Cascade totally useless on characters that attack slowly. So what Cygames has done is make it scale to an invisible modifier, which is probably closely linked to the damage modifier of an attack, if not the exact same value. This allows Cascade to be properly balanced on all characters. So don't worry about Cascade not working or being bad on a specific character. It will always work for you as long as you're hitting the boss. And speaking of hitting the boss, that brings us back to one of our original questions. Should we be using Cascade instead of quick cooldown? Sure, on a training dummy that doesn't move, attack back, have cutscenes, have bloodthirst phases, or just generally becomes unhittable for one reason or another, it's amazing. But in practical use, it's not as straightforward. To show how crazy we really are here at the Game Club, we'll give you some insane level of detail checking. In a boss fight where cutscenes play while retaining your full UI but remove control of your characters, your cooldowns are still reducing, meaning quick cooldown is being used because it's active anytime your cooldowns are restoring. However, cutscenes that remove the UI, save for the party bars on the left, freeze your cooldowns, meaning quick cooldown isn't being utilized. So what does this mean? It means on bosses that you're sure you'll be able to hit consistently and or have a lot of skill UI hiding cutscenes, Cascade will skew better than quick cooldown. However, on bosses that you can't hit as regularly because either you're trying to play safe, they just run away sometimes, or play a lot of full UI cutscenes, quick cooldown is definitely better.
It's also worth considering that as you learn bosses more and potentially skip phases, Cascade's value is going to increase. You'll be able to dodge attacks more easily and even get extra hits in. So long term, we might see this trait's worth increase even despite cutscenes and bloodthirsts. Just something to think about. Aside from any of that, if you just don't want to feel the pressure of constantly pushing yourself to attack at all times, even when it's risky to get the best out of Cascade, then just don't run it. Quick cooldown is always working for you for none of the effort, and potentially more reduction if there's a bunch of downtime. Heck, you don't even have to run any cooldown reduction if you don't want to. If you have skills that are more fun to you, then make the build that you enjoy the most.
Alright, for making it all the way through the video, we're going to give you some bonus information about supplementary damage. We've seen it said that sup damage works with Cascade and the signature sigils that reduce cooldowns when hitting your finisher, like Cag or Vayne. Well, that's half true. We tested both and can report that sup damage does not in any way interact with skills that add cooldown reduction when you hit a finisher. Tested down to the millisecond. However, you will get a small amount of extra cooldown reduction when combining Cascade and sup damage. And while it's pretty minor, it's a synergy that should be considered. Could we have made a whole other video for just that information? I mean, sure, but that's not how we roll here at the Game Club. We play by our own rules here. So enjoy that nice bit of bonus information. Anyways, we hope you found this video informative and helped clarify any doubts about Cascade's functionality. But with that, we'll see ya in the next one.
See ya!